The vast expanse of space stretched endlessly before the Earth Defense Force flagship, Resilient Dawn. The stars twinkled like distant diamonds against the velvet black backdrop, peaceful and serene. That serenity shattered as reality itself seemed to tear open, revealing thousands of alien vessels emerging from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic insects. Admiral Tai Young stood tall on the bridge, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. At 63 years old, he had seen humanity reach for the stars, establish colonies, and develop technologies that their ancestors would have considered magic. But this moment, this was something entirely different. The alien ships were beautiful in their own way. They gleamed with an otherworldly purple-silver sheen, their designs speaking of advanced engineering and powerful weapons. Each vessel was at least twice the size of the Resilient Dawn, and there were thousands of them. "Multiple contacts, sir," reported Lieutenant Park from his sensor station. "I'm counting over 3,000 vessels. Energy readings are off the charts." His voice remained steady, but his fingers trembled slightly as they danced across the holographic controls. Commander Jinnah, Tai Young's second-in-command for the past 5 years, stood at her station with perfect posture. Her dark eyes narrowed as she studied the incoming data streams. She had earned her position through a combination of brilliant tactical thinking and unshakable calm under pressure. Even now, facing what appeared to be humanity's first contact with an alien civilization, she maintained her composure. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission," Jinnah announced. "It's being broadcast on all frequencies, in multiple Earth languages." She paused, her eyebrows rising slightly. "They're using our own communication protocols." Tai Young nodded. "Put it through, Commander." The holographic display at the center of the bridge flickered to life, revealing a tall, humanoid figure. The alien skin had a metallic sheen, and its eyes glowed with an inner light. When it spoke, its voice was deep and resonated with authority. "People of Earth and its colonies, hear me. I am Grand Marshal Kaiho of the Galactic Empire. Your civilization has been noted and marked for integration into our glorious empire. Your technology is primitive, your defenses inadequate. Surrender now, and you will be granted status as a protectorate species. Resist, and you will be conquered. You have 1 Earth hour to respond." The message repeated itself in several languages before falling silent. The bridge crew looked to their admiral, waiting for his response. The situation seemed dire. Humanity had only recently begun to explore space, and their military fleet was tiny compared to this armada. Commander Jinnah stepped closer to Tai Young. "Admiral, they're demanding our immediate surrender," she reported officially, though everyone had heard the message. They claimed resistance would be futile given their technological superiority. Her tone was matter-of-fact, but there was a slight curl to her lip that suggested she found something amusing about the situation. Tai Young's face remained impassive for a long moment as he studied the enemy fleet. Then, something unexpected happened. It started as a small chuckle, grew into a hearty laugh, and finally became a full-bellied roar of amusement that echoed across the bridge. One by one, other officers began to join in. First, Jinnah, whose usually stoic expression cracked into a wide grin. Then Lieutenant Park at his sensor station, followed by the weapons officer and the navigation team. Within moments, the entire bridge crew was laughing. To an outside observer, it might have seemed like mass hysteria. Here was humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization, facing an overwhelming force, and the response was laughter. But Tai Young knew exactly why they were laughing. He walked to the communication station, his eyes twinkling with mirth. "Open a channel to the entire alien fleet," he ordered, still chuckling. "Channel open, sir," the communications officer reported, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. Tai Young pressed the broadcast button and sent their response. Nothing but the recorded sound of the bridge crew's collective laughter. He followed it with a simple text message in all the languages the aliens had used. "Thank you for the entertainment. We'll be in touch." Then he ordered all channels close, leaving the mighty Galactic Empire fleet to wonder why their intimidating arrival had been met with such an unusual response. As he looked at the massive alien armada through the bridge viewport, Tai Yum couldn't help but shake his head in amusement. "Send word to all Earth and Colony Defense Forces," he ordered. "Tell them to proceed with Protocol Omega-7. And someone please let Research Division know their predictions were exactly right." He turned to Jinnah with a smile. "I don't know about you, Commander, but I haven't had this much fun since the Academy." The alien fleet hung in space, their mighty weapons and advanced technology on full display, while the human ships began to move in what appeared to be completely random patterns. The game was about to begin, and only one side knew the real rules. Grand Marshal Kehoe paced across the command deck of his flagship, the Imperial Dawn, his metallic skin reflecting the soft purple lighting of the bridge. His footsteps echoed with increasing force as anger built within him. The holographic display of the human response, their mocking laughter, played again and again in his mind. In his 300 years of service to the Empire, Kehoe had overseen the conquest of 17 civilizations. Some had fought back with advanced weapons. Others had tried to negotiate. A few had even attempted to flee. But none, not a single one, had ever laughed. "Play it again," he ordered, his voice sharp enough to make nearby officers flinch. The sound of human laughter filled the command deck once more. Kehoe's facial plates shifted in a way that his species used to show extreme displeasure. Do-hyun, his strategic advisor for the past 50 years, stood at attention nearby. The younger officer's skin had a smoother sheen, lacking the battle marks that decorated Kehoe's frame. He manipulated the holographic controls with practiced ease, bringing up detailed scans of human space. "My lord, I've reviewed the data multiple times," Do-hyun reported, his voice carefully neutral. "Their defensive capabilities appear minimal at best. We detect no super weapons, no planetary shields, not even what we would consider a proper military fleet. The majority of their vessels appear to be civilian craft and mining operations." Kehoe's mandibles clicked together in frustration, a sound that made junior officers hurry to look busy. "Then why do they laugh?" he demanded, more to himself than his advisor. "Show me their military capabilities again." The holographic display shifted, showing a detailed analysis of human technology. Their ships were primitive by Imperial standards, using basic fusion drives instead of quantum propulsion, simple kinetic weapons instead of plasma cannons, and minimal shielding technology. Their space stations looked like they had been cobbled together from spare parts. "Perhaps they are insane," suggested Captain Yuri, one of Kehoe's most trusted battlefield commanders. "Some species react to fear with inappropriate emotional responses." Kehoe shook his head, his armor plates rustling. "No, I've seen fear in 1,000 forms." This was genuine amusement. He stopped his pacing and stared at the tactical display. "What are their ships doing now?" Do-hyun adjusted the display, showing the movements of human vessels throughout their system. "They appear to be moving randomly, my lord. Some are continuing their mining operations. Others are simply traveling between planets and stations. We can detect no military formation or defensive positioning." The Grand Marshal's eyes narrowed. He had not achieved his position by underestimating opponents. Run a deeper scan. Check for hidden weapons platforms, cloaked vessels, anything that might explain their confidence. Hours passed as the Imperial fleet's advanced sensors probed every corner of human space. Officers came and went, bringing reports that all said the same thing. The humans had no significant military capabilities. They were, by all measurable standards, helpless before the might of the Empire. "My lord," Do-hyun finally said, "there is one unusual reading we can't quite explain." He highlighted a section of the scan data. "Some of their mining vessels are emitting energy signatures we've never seen before. Our computers can't classify them." Kehoe leaned forward, studying the readings. "Some new form of weapon?" "Unknown, sir. The energy patterns don't match any known weapon system. They're more similar to Well, to their mining equipment. But there's something about them our sensors can't quite analyze. The Grand Marshal felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Uncertainty. The humans were clearly inferior in every way. Yet they acted as if they held all the advantages. Their ships moved without apparent purpose. Their vessels continued civilian operations as if the Imperial fleet didn't exist. And that laughter. Send a probe, Keiho ordered suddenly. Just one. Target one of their outer mining stations. Let's see how they react to a show of force. As the probe launched toward its target, Keiho watched the human vessels carefully. They made no move to intercept it. They didn't even seem to notice it. Their ships continued their apparently random movements. Their mining operations continued uninterrupted, and their communication channels remained filled with casual civilian chatter. Either they are fools, Keiho said quietly, or they know something we don't. His mandibles clicked again. And I have never encountered a species of fools that achieved space travel. The probe was approaching its target now. Soon, they would have their answer. But deep in his armor-plated chest, Grand Marshal Keiho felt something he hadn't experienced since his first battle, a creeping sense of dread. The laughter of the humans echoed in his memory, and for the first time in centuries, he wondered if perhaps the Empire had made a terrible mistake. Deep within the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden inside what appeared to be an ordinary mining facility, Commander Haenul watched the tactical display with a satisfied smile. The massive holographic projection showed hundreds of human ships moving across the solar system in what seemed like complete chaos. Mining vessels changed course without warning. Cargo ships took unnecessarily long routes between planets. Passenger liners altered their speed randomly. To any outside observer, it looked like humanity had collectively forgotten how to pilot their vessels properly. Alpha Group, adjust your mining pattern by 3 degrees, Haenul ordered calmly. Beta Group, increase speed by 12% for exactly 43 seconds, then resume standard velocity. Her voice was steady, almost cheerful, as she continued orchestrating what appeared to be madness. The command center buzzed with quiet activity. Officers at their stations monitored the movements of both human and Imperial ships, making tiny adjustments to their carefully planned chaos. The room itself was carved directly into the asteroid, its walls lined with screens showing every aspect of their operation. A door slid open with a soft hiss, and Operations Director Sunmai entered. Her uniform was crisp, her expression curious as she observed the tactical display. "Status report," she asked, walking to stand beside Haenul. "Phase 1 is proceeding exactly as planned," Haenul replied, gesturing to the display. "The Empire's tactical AI is doing exactly what we predicted, attempting to identify patterns where there are none. They're completely missing what's actually happening." She highlighted a section of the display, showing the Imperial fleet's sensor suites. "They've run the same analysis 17 times in the last hour." Sun Li nodded, watching as a mining vessel suddenly changed its course for seemingly no reason. "And our real preparations." Haenul pressed a few controls, and a new layer appeared on the tactical display, visible only to them. Behind the apparent chaos of ship movements, a complex pattern emerged. Every random course change, every speed adjustment, every seemingly pointless maneuver was actually part of an intricate dance. "The resonance field is at 63% strength," Haenul explained. "Every ship movement adds to the pattern. Even the Imperial fleet's sensor sweeps are unknowingly contributing to our field strength. We estimate full coverage in approximately 4 hours." A junior officer approached with a tablet. "Commander, the Empire has launched a probe toward Mining Station 7. Right on schedule," Haenul said, checking her watch. "They lasted almost exactly as long as we predicted before trying a show of force." She turned to Sunmai. "Would you like to do the honors?" Sunmai stepped forward, her eyes twinkling. "Mining Station 7. Proceed with Protocol Sigma. Let's give our guests their first lesson in human ingenuity." Throughout the solar system, Human ships continued their seemingly random movements. Miners kept drilling into asteroids. Cargo vessels continued their inefficient routes. Passenger ships maintained their erratic speeds, and beneath it all, invisible to Imperial sensors, something extraordinary was taking shape. "Look at their fleet formations," Newell said, highlighting the Imperial ships. "They're so focused on finding military patterns that they haven't noticed how their own positions have shifted. Their attempts to maintain optimal scanning coverage have actually moved them exactly where we need them." A young tactical officer raised her hand. "Commander, I'm picking up increased energy readings from the Imperial fleet. They appear to be charging weapon systems." "Good," Newell replied. "That means they're feeding even more energy into the resonance field. Has anyone noticed that their communication lag has increased by 0.3 seconds? That's suicide," someone muttered from the bridge crew. Park raised his hand for silence. "Your calculations, Officer Choi. What are our chances?" Sun Li's fingers flew across her pad. "If we can get within 5,000 kilometers and hit them at precisely the right moment in their shield modulation cycle, 23% chance of success. Better odds than the colony has if we do nothing," Park said quietly. He straightened his uniform and faced his crew. "Chief Kim, how long to modify the mining lasers?" 10 minutes if we bypass all safety protocols." "Do it. Lieutenant Lee, plot us an approach vector through that blind spot." "Officer Choi, I want you coordinating with tactical. The instant you see that shield modulation pattern, we take the shot." The bridge erupted into activity. Warning klaxons sounded throughout the ship as engineering crews rushed to modify the mining laser array. Power was diverted from non-essential systems, leaving parts of the ship dark and cold. "Enemy ships are launching fighters," Lee reported. "They've spotted us. Hold position behind the moon," Park ordered. "Wait for engineering to finish the modifications." The minutes crawled by with agonizing slowness. On the tactical display, the fighter screens spread out, searching for them. The Krell ships continued their bombardment of the surface, unworried by the presence of a single human vessel. "Modifications complete." Kim's voice came over the comm. "But sir, I have to warn you, we'll only get one shot at this. The power surge will probably fry half our systems." Park nodded grimly. "Better make it count then." He keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, battle stations. This is not a drill. Today we prove that the size of the ship matters less than the courage of its crew." The Dauntless's engines flared to life, pushing them out from behind the moon. Immediately, the Krell fighter screen turned toward them, weapons charging. "Take us in, full speed," Park commanded. "Auxiliary power to forward shields." Timing is everything here, people. The human warship shot forward, weaving through the oncoming fighters with remarkable agility for its size. Lee's piloting skills proved invaluable as they dodged energy blasts and missiles, closing the distance to their target. Entering optimal firing range in 15 seconds, Choi announced, her eyes fixed on the shield modulation readings. "Wait for it. Wait for it." The Krell capital ships were turning ponderously to face them, their massive weapons beginning to track the approaching human vessel. "Now," Choi shouted. The modified mining laser array fired, a brilliant beam of concentrated energy striking the nearest Krell ship at precisely the moment its shield cycled. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the beam punched through, slicing deep into the enemy vessel's hull. Secondary explosions bloomed along its length as the massive ship began to break apart. On the bridge of the Dauntless, systems were overloading, circuits burning out from the massive power surge. But through the chaos and smoke, Commander Park allowed himself a small smile. David had just landed his first blow against Goliath. Reality bent and twisted as the UES Dauntless tore through the fabric of space, emerging from FTL with a brilliant flash of light. Warning alarms blared across the bridge as 3 massive shapes appeared on their sensors. Krell warships, each one dwarfing the human vessel by several magnitudes. Multiple hostile contacts. Lieutenant Lee's voice cut through the chaos. 3 Krell dreadnoughts, weapons hot and shields at maximum power. Commander Park gripped his command chair as the tactical display painted a grim picture. The Krell ships were enormous, their black hulls bristling with weapon emplacements. Each vessel stretched nearly 2 kilometers in length, making the Dauntless look like a mere shuttle in comparison. "Show me their firing patterns," Park ordered, keeping his voice steady despite the gravity of their situation. The holographic display zoomed in, showing energy readings that made several bridge officers gasp. The Krell weapons were systematically destroying the Miran colony's orbital defenses, each blast carrying enough power to vaporize a small city. "Their shield technology is at least 3 generations ahead of ours," Lee reported, her fingers dancing across her console. "Direct engagement would be suicide." Chief Kim stepped forward from his engineering station, his expression intense. "Maybe not, sir. I've been studying their energy signatures. These ships rely on brute force, massive power output, conventional military weapons. But that's also their weakness." "Explain," Park commanded, his eyes fixed on the enemy vessels. Myray's display showed the complex web of quantum targeting solutions, each weapon platform linked to multiple targets. The entire Imperial fleet was caught in a 3-dimensional grid of overlapping fields of fire. There would be no escape. "Enemy shields are at maximum power," she reported. "They're trying to power up their weapons, but our quantum interference is keeping them locked down." Do-hyun nodded slowly, studying the tactical display. 1,000 alien ships, each capable of destroying cities, now trapped like insects in amber. Their superior attitude had led them straight into humanity's trap. "Time remaining on surrender window?" he asked. 15 seconds, sir," Myray responded. No response to our message. They appear to be attempting to break through our communications blackout. The general looked up at the screens showing the world leaders. These men and women represented every nation, every people on Earth. Centuries of secret preparation, of maintaining the illusion of division, while working together in secret, had led to this moment. One by one, each leader gave a silent nod. The decision was unanimous. 10 seconds, Myray announced. Do-hyun thought of all the generations that had worked toward this day. Scientists who had developed technologies beyond even the Empire's understanding. Engineers who had built vast underground cities and hidden weapon platforms. Intelligence operators who had maintained Earth's primitive facade. 5 seconds. The quantum displays showed the Imperial ships still struggling to respond. Their sensors were overwhelmed, their weapons unable to lock onto targets that existed partially in other dimensions, their advanced shields suddenly seeming primitive compared to Earth's technology. 3 seconds. Myray's fingers moved across the interface, initiating the final attack sequence. Each weapon platform hummed with power as quantum singularities spun up to full capacity. 2 seconds. The targeting grid locked into its final configuration. 1,000 Imperial ships, about to learn the price of underestimating humanity. 1 second. Do-hyun took a deep breath. Centuries of preparation came down to this moment. "Execute," he commanded. Myray's fingers touched the quantum interface. In that instant, thousands of weapon platforms fired simultaneously. Space itself seemed to twist as quantum beams crossed the void, each one carrying enough energy to shatter a planet. The Imperial ships' shields flared brilliant white as they encountered weapons operating on principles they couldn't comprehend. Metal hulls designed to withstand antimatter explosions offered no protection against quantum phase attacks. In exactly 3 seconds, 999 Imperial ships ceased to exist. They didn't explode or break apart. They simply vanished, their very atoms dispersed across multiple dimensions. Only the flagship remained, held immobile in a quantum stasis field, its crew forced to watch as their entire fleet was erased from existence. "Attack complete," Myray reported calmly. 999 confirmed eliminations. Flagship secured for boarding actions. The command center erupted in quiet cheers and sighs of relief. Centuries of preparation, of hiding and waiting, had paid off. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy in a way that would never be forgotten. Du Hyun looked at the single remaining Imperial ship on his display. Prepare boarding teams. It's time to send our message to the Empire. The first interstellar war in human history had lasted exactly 3 seconds, and humanity had won without losing a single life. Commander Sungmin stood frozen on his bridge, watching the impossible scene before him. Where moments ago 1,000 Imperial ships had dominated space around Earth, now only scattered particles remained, dispersed across dimensions he couldn't comprehend. His mighty flagship, pride of the Imperial fleet, hung powerless in space, caught in an energy field that defied Imperial science. The ship's internal sensors blazed with warnings as multiple breaches appeared along its hull. Not explosions or cutting beams. The humans simply phased through solid metal, as if it weren't there. Sungmin's crew drew their weapons, though their hands shook as they aimed at the entry points. "We remember more every day," Sun Mai replied. "The question is, will you help us build a better galaxy, or will we have to do it ourselves?" The threat wasn't subtle, nor was it meant to be. Humanity had risen from the ashes once before. They wouldn't be stopped again. The elder's skin shifted to a deep, resonant gold, a color Sun Mai hadn't seen before. "You've changed," it said softly. "Your species, you're not what you were." "No," Sun Mai agreed, rising to her feet. "We're what you made us. The question is, are you ready to live with the consequences of that decision?" The storm that had been gathering for 12,000 years was about to break, and the galaxy would never be the same. The red planet hung like a jewel against the black velvet of space, its surface marked by the sprawling complexes of humanity's reborn shipyards. General Taiwan Kang stood at attention on the observation deck of Mars Command, his eyes fixed on the spectacle unfolding before him. One by one, the warships of Earth's new fleet emerged from their construction base. Their hulls gleamed with a metallic sheen that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, a property of the advanced materials recovered from their ancestors' archives. Each vessel was a perfect fusion of recovered ancient technology and modern human innovation. "Fleet status report, Commander," Taiwan said, not taking his eyes off the ships. Commander Min Ji-ryu consulted her tablet. "All 20 vessels reporting ready, sir. The EDS Vengeance leads the formation, followed by the Remembrance, the Justice, and the Legacy. The rest are falling into standard combat spacing." The ships moved with a grace that belied their massive size. The Vengeance alone was 3 kilometers long, its hull bristling with weapon systems that hadn't been seen in the galaxy for 12,000 years. The Collective had tried to prevent this, imposing economic sanctions and trade restrictions on Earth after the first diplomatic contact. They hadn't counted on humanity's resourcefulness or their ability to inspire others. "Message from the Centaurian delegation," Minji reported. "Their ships will rendezvous with the fleet in 6 hours." Taiwan nodded. The Centaurians had been among the first to break away from the Collective's control, inspired by humanity's return to the stars. Their ships weren't as advanced as Earth's, but they brought valuable knowledge of current Collective tactics and deployments. "They thought they could contain us again," he remarked to Minji. "But we found allies among their oppressed worlds. History won't repeat itself." The commander's expression hardened. Like everyone in Earth's military, she had studied the records of humanity's fall. "The Collective's control is slipping, sir. 3 more species declared independence last week. The alliance grows stronger every day." The Alliance of Free Worlds, a name chosen deliberately to contrast with the Collective's forced unity. What had started with Earth and the Centaurians had grown to include 15 species, all seeking to break free from millennia of subtle oppression. "Sir," a junior officer called out, "priority message from intelligence. The Collective fleet in the Proxima sector is moving." Taiwan turned to the tactical display. Red dots representing Collective warships were shifting position, forming a blockade pattern. "They're trying to cut off our supply lines to the outer colonies," he observed. Minji studied the display. "Standard Collective doctrine. Isolate, contain, then slowly squeeze until resistance becomes impossible. That's the problem with the collective, Taiwan said, a slight smile playing at his lips. They never learn new tricks. Show me the fleet's readiness status. The display shifted, showing detailed information about each Earth vessel. Green indicators across the board. Weapons, shields, engines, all operating at peak efficiency. The ship's AI systems, based on recovered designs but enhanced with modern programming, reported full combat readiness. Signal the fleet, Ta-1 ordered. Operation Remembrance begins in 30 minutes. Let's show them what humanity remembers. The plan was audacious. While the collective expected them to defend their supply lines, Earth's fleet would instead strike at the heart of their power in this sector. The recovered archives had revealed weaknesses in collective station designs, weaknesses they had never bothered to correct in 12,000 years. Message from the Vengeance, Minji reported. Captain Song reports all ships in position and awaiting your command. Taiwan straightened his uniform. Send the order. Execute Operation Remembrance. All ships, Combat Protocol Alpha. The fleet moved as one, their engines flaring bright against the darkness. The formation they took was unlike anything seen in modern space combat. Patterns developed by their ancestors, refined through millennia of warfare that the collective had tried to erase from history. Sir, Minji said quietly, the collective doesn't stand a chance, do they? Taiwan watched as the fleet accelerated toward their jump points. They made 3 mistakes, Commander. First, they tried to destroy us instead of working with us. Second, they failed to finish the job. But their biggest mistake, he gestured to the tactical display, where signals from more Alliance ships were appearing. They showed the rest of the galaxy exactly what they were capable of. Now everyone knows what they really are. The first ships vanished in flashes of light as they jumped to FTL. Soon, the collective would learn that humanity hadn't just recovered their ancient technology. They'd improved upon it. The ships now heading toward their space were more advanced than anything that had existed during humanity's first rise to power. Send word to all Alliance members, Ta-1 ordered. Phase 1 begins now. Let's remind the galaxy why they tried so hard to make us forget who we were. As the last ships jumped away, leaving Mars' orbit empty once more, Ta-1 reflected on the irony of it all. The collective had spent 12,000 years maintaining their power through fear and manipulation. Now those same tactics had created the very thing they had tried to prevent, a unified opposition led by the species they had tried to destroy. The storm was about to break, and this time, humanity wasn't facing it alone. The alarms blared through the EDS Vengeance as collective ships dropped out of FTL around Proxima Centauri. Captain Jinwoo Park stood calmly on his bridge, watching as enemy vessels materialized against the backdrop of stars. Their crystalline hulls caught the light of the system's red dwarf sun, making them look like predatory fish circling their prey. 37 collective warships detected, Combat Officer Lee reported, her hands dancing over the tactical display. Standard attack formation. They're moving to surround the colony. Jinwoo studied the enemy deployment. The collective had sent what they considered an overwhelming force, enough ships to subdue a dozen normal worlds. They expected to find a primitive human colony, defended by basic ships and outdated weapons. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Status of our fleet? Jinwoo asked, his voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. All ships reporting ready, Captain. The Remembrance and Justice are in position behind Proxima's moon. The Legacy Group is holding at the system's edge. Colony defense systems are online and tracking targets. The captain allowed himself a small smile. The collective hadn't even noticed the ships hidden in the system's shadow zones, positions mapped out by their ancestors for exactly this kind of defense. Let them make the first move, he ordered. Let's see if they remember how to fight a real war. The enemy fleet moved with mechanical precision, following tactical doctrines that hadn't changed in millennia. Their lead ships broadcast the standard collective ultimatum: surrender or be destroyed. The message was delivered in the patronizing tone they reserve for lesser species. "Send our response," Jin Wu commanded. The communications officer activated the ship's main transmitter. Across every collective vessel, screens lit up with the image of humanity's recovered archives. They showed scenes of burning human worlds, of collective ships destroying civilian colonies, of the systematic erasure of human civilization. The message ended with a simple statement: "We remember." "Enemy ships accelerating," Lee reported. "They're launching fighters." Jin Wu nodded. "Exactly as expected. Signal the fleet. Execute Maneuver Phoenix." The Vengeance's engines flared to life as the massive warship began a series of movements that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of meeting the enemy head-on, the human vessels seemed to scatter in random directions. To the collective commanders, it must have looked like panic, until they realized too late what was really happening. Latest intelligence from the Centaurian network, Min-Seo continued. "The Collective Council is in emergency session. 3 more senior members have resigned. Their fleets are refusing orders to suppress the rebellions." Se-Jin moved closer to the map, his weathered face reflected in its holographic glow. After 40 years in Earth's Space Force, he had never imagined seeing this day. The Collective, which had dominated galactic politics for over 20,000 years, was falling apart from within. "They feared us because we united people," Se-Jin realized, speaking almost to himself. "Not through force like they did, but through cooperation and mutual respect. That's why they tried to destroy us." Min-Seo looked up from her console. "Sir, look at the pattern," Se-Jin explained, gesturing to the map. "Every species that's broken away from the Collective, they're not just declaring independence. They're joining the alliance. They're choosing to stand together." The evidence was clear in the data streams. Former enemies were now fighting side by side. Species that the Collective had kept isolated from each other for millennia were forming trade agreements, cultural exchanges, mutual defense pacts. "Message from the Arcturian High Command," a communications officer called out. "They're requesting alliance support to liberate their colony worlds." The Arcturians. Min-Seo's surprise was evident. They've been the Collective's enforcers for thousands of years. Se-Jin's expression hardened. They were slaves too. They just wore fancier chains. "Send word. Full alliance support authorized. And get me a channel to their fleet commander." The main screen flickered to life, showing an Arcturian bridge. Their species resembled tall, elegant insects with iridescent carapaces and compound eyes. The commander's translator converted their harmonic speech into Earth standard. "Admiral Yoon," the Arcturian said, their antennae quivering with emotion. We owe humanity an apology. For generations, we helped maintain the system that once tried to destroy your species. The past is past," Se-Jin replied firmly. "What matters is what we build now, together." New alerts flashed across the tactical display. Collective fleets were mobilizing, not to attack, but to surrender. Ship after ship was dropping out of formation, refusing orders to fire on their own people. "Sir," Min-Seo said urgently, "priority message from Earth Command. The Collective Council has requested direct negotiations. They're offering unconditional surrender." A hush fell over the bridge. This was more than victory. It was vindication. Humanity hadn't just survived their attempted extinction. They had sparked a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. "Send our response," Se-Jin ordered after a moment. "The Alliance will accept their surrender, but only if they agree to face justice for all their crimes, not just those against humanity." As the message was transmitted, Se-Jin looked again at the galaxy map. The patterns of liberation were spreading like wildfire, crossing artificial boundaries the Collective had maintained for millennia. Species that had been kept apart were coming together, sharing knowledge, forming bonds. "You know what the Collective never understood," he said to Min-Seo. "They thought suppressing advancement would keep everyone weak. Instead, they just made us all stronger in different ways. Now those strengths are combining." The captain nodded. They created their own worst nightmare, a galaxy that remembered how to work together. More reports flooded in. The collective's carefully maintained barriers were crumbling. Trade routes reopened. Ancient alliances were remembered and renewed. The galaxy was awakening from a long, enforced slumber. "Set course for Earth," Sejin ordered. "The Council will want to coordinate the transition. We need to make sure this change brings freedom, not chaos." As the Reckoning's engines powered up, Sejin took one last look at the tactical display. The pattern was unmistakable now, not just victory, but transformation. The collective had spent 20,000 years trying to prevent exactly this, a galaxy united not by force or fear, but by choice and mutual respect. They had failed, and in their failure, they had proven why humanity had been such a threat to them in the first place. Because humans didn't just fight for themselves, they fought for everyone's right to be free. The price of pride was being paid, not just by the collective, but by everyone who had forgotten that true strength comes from standing together, not standing alone. The galaxy was changing, and this time it would change for the better. The grand hall of the Galactic Assembly on Mars stretched toward the stars, its transparent dome offering a view of both the red planet's surface and the endless space beyond. The architecture blended styles from 100 worlds, graceful Centaurian arches meeting sturdy Arcturian supports, all built upon foundations that echoed humanity's recovered past. President Hai-Jin Quan stood at the central podium, looking out over the assembled representatives of nearly 300 species. Former enemies sat side by side. Collective loyalists next to resistance fighters, ancient rivals sharing information and resources. The change that had swept through the galaxy had transformed more than just political boundaries. Dr. Jai-Yun Lee watched from her seat in the science section, hardly believing that the artifacts she'd discovered in that Martian chamber had led to this moment. 10 years had passed since she'd first decoded those ancient coordinates, yet the memory remained vivid. "The war is over," Hai-Jin began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "But our work, our real work, is just beginning." The president gestured to the holographic display behind her, showing images from across the galaxy. New trade routes connected previously isolated systems. Former prison worlds were being transformed into centers of learning. Species that had been kept apart for millennia were sharing technology, culture, and knowledge. "We stand here today not as conquerors," she continued, "but as partners in a new future." The collective surrender marked more than just the end of their dominion. It marked the beginning of true cooperation among the stars. Ambassador Sun Ma-Choi, who had faced down the collective in that first tense meeting, nodded from her position among the diplomatic court. The peaceful transition of power had exceeded even her hopes. "When we first discovered our past," Hai-Jin said, "many expected humanity to seek revenge. Some even hoped for it. Instead, we chose a different path." She paused, looking directly at the former collective representatives. "We remembered our history not to repeat it, but to ensure it never happens again." The assembly hall grew quiet as she activated another display, showing the new galactic charter. Its first article, written in every known language, declared that no species would ever again be subjugated or held back from its potential. "The galaxy once shuddered at humanity's potential," Hai-Jin continued. "The collective feared our ability to unite others, to build bridges instead of walls. They tried to destroy us because they couldn't control us. But in doing so, they taught us our greatest strength." She gestured to the gathered representatives. "Look around you. Every species here has something unique to offer. Every culture brings new perspectives. Every world holds possibilities we've only begun to imagine. Together, we're not just stronger, we're better." Dr. Jai-Yun thought back to those first artifacts she discovered. She had feared they might lead to an apocalyptic war of revenge. Instead, they had sparked a renaissance of cooperation among the stars. "The Galactic Assembly," Hai-Jin declared, "will not rule through force or fear. We will govern through consensus and respect. Every voice will be heard. Every species will have a path to advancement. And humanity, she smiled. Humanity will serve not as conquerors or rulers, but as guardians of freedom and equality. The chamber erupted in applause. Species that couldn't physically clap found other ways to show their approval. The sound rolled through the hall like thunder, not the thunder of war, but of celebration. As the applause faded, Hai Jin revealed the final part of the charter. Today, we establish the Remembrance Initiative. Every world that was imprisoned, every species that was held back, will receive the support they need to reclaim their potential. But more than that, we will preserve the memory of what happened, not for vengeance, but as an eternal reminder of why we must stand together. Dr. Jai-yun felt tears in her eyes as she watched former collective enforcers embrace species they had once oppressed. The artifacts she discovered had indeed settled an ancient score, not through revenge, but by showing a better way. The galaxy has changed, Hai Jin concluded, and we have changed with it. Let history remember this, not as the day humanity triumphed, but as the day all species chose to rise together.